The day my homeowners association called the police on my son's Navy SEAL mentors started like any regular Friday. And for about 10 minutes, I honestly thought somebody else's life had somehow spilled into mine. I turned on a Seabrook landing drive just after 4:30 with a stack of papers on the passenger seat and half a granola bar I forgot to finish between classes, and before I even reached my mailbox, I saw flashing blue lights bouncing off every window on the block. 3 squad cars, neighbors outside pretending not to stare. And right there in my driveway, my 17-year-old son, Caleb, standing perfectly still with both hands where officers could see them. My stomach dropped so fast it physically hurt. Then I saw the 6 men standing near him in jeans and polos and baseball caps, calm as stone, and finally, standing near the curb with her arms folded and a smile that honestly still makes my jaw tighten when I think about it. Rebecca Holloway, president of the Seabrook HOA. For a second, I couldn't even process what I was looking at. I parked crooked, left the engine running, and got out. Caleb, he turned toward me immediately. Mom, I'm okay. One of the officers stepped forward. Ma'am, sorry about this. Sorry? I looked at him, then at Caleb, then at Rebecca. What happened? Rebecca answered before anyone else could. I reported suspicious military activity in the neighborhood. There were unfamiliar men gathering around tactical vehicles, and your driveway was blocked. Tactical vehículos. I actually blinked, because parked in my driveway was a black pickup truck and my husband's old charcoal grill. That was apparently enough for her. Then Officer Daniels, who I recognized from school football games, looked over at one of the men, and his whole face changed. Chief Bennett. The man nodded once. Good to see you, officer. Daniels immediately turned back toward Rebecca. Ma'am, these gentlemen are fine. Rebecca stiffened. Excuse me. They're not trespassing. They're not causing a disturbance. They're invited guests. Another officer looked embarrassed enough to apologize right there. Rebecca didn't. She stared like she'd been personally insulted by being wrong. The men barely reacted. That was the part that got me. Calm, quiet, grounded in a way military people carry themselves when chaos around them isn't worth acknowledging. Chief Marcus Bennett stepped toward Caleb and squeezed his shoulder. You all right, kid? Caleb nodded. Yes, sir. Hearing that almost cracked me, because Caleb had been waiting all year for that weekend. Every Memorial Day weekend, since he was 9, 6 men who served with my husband came to see him. No uniforms, no ceremony, just stories, burgers on the grill, life advice, and a promise they made beside a military hospital bed almost 8 years ago. My husband, Commander Ryan Mercer, died overseas when Caleb was 9 years old. Caleb remembers his voice, the way he laughed, the smell of shaving cream on Sunday mornings. But these men, they helped carry the parts memory couldn't hold. They kept Ryan present, every year, without fail. Officer Daniels apologized again before leaving. The cruisers pulled away. Neighbors disappeared back inside. And Rebecca stood there another second like she expected somebody to thank her. Then she said, I still think residents deserve notice before armed military personnel gather in the neighborhood. Marcus smiled politely. Ma'am, we're off duty, and nobody here is armed. Rebecca's face went red. Then she turned and walked away without another word. Caleb exhaled like he'd been holding his breath the entire time. I wrapped him in a hug before I even thought about it. You okay? He nodded against my shoulder. She scared Mrs. Palmer from next door, too. She told her we were some kind of operation. Marcus muttered under his breath. That woman would call in a hostage rescue over a barbecue grill. That got Kayla laughing, thank God. For a little while the tension broke. The grill got going. Burgers hit the grate. Somebody tossed Caleb a football. The sun dropped lower over the cul-de-sac, and for a moment, everything felt normal again. The kind of normal we had learned to build after losing Ryan. But 2 days later the mail arrived, and normal ended all over again. White HOA envelope. Certified. I opened it standing in the kitchen. Violation notice. Unauthorized assembly. Threat to neighborhood security. $850 penalty. Failure to pay may result in lien proceedings against property valued at approximately $340,000. I actually sat down at the kitchen table because my legs went weak. Caleb walked in halfway through and read over my shoulder. Mom, I didn't answer. I was already reaching for the phone. Rebecca picked up on the second ring. Seabrook Management. Rebecca, it's Sarah Mercer. Explain this. Silence for one beat. Then her voice went cool as glass. The board agreed your gathering violated HOA safety expectations. Those were invited guests. Your late husband's friends need to stop treating this neighborhood like a military base. My hand literally shook against the counter. There are some sentences that don't feel rude. They feel personal, deliberate, designed to wound. And that one hit exactly where she meant it to. I hung up before I said something I couldn't take back. Caleb stood across from me watching. Mom. I swallowed hard and looked toward the hallway closet. Top shelf. Blue binder. Ryan's documents. The things I hadn't opened in nearly a year. My chest tightened before I even touched it. But once it was in my hands, I already knew. Rebecca thought she was dealing with HOA paperwork. She had no idea she'd just stepped directly into something Ryan made sure would outlive him. And by midnight, sitting at my kitchen table with page after page spread out in front of me, I realized she had picked a fight with exactly the wrong family. Ryan had always been organized in a way that used to drive me crazy when we were younger. Every document labeled, every folder dated, every important piece of paper stored exactly where he said it would be. 8 years after losing him, I could still hear his voice in my head while I opened that blue binder at the kitchen table. Caleb sat across from me, quiet for once, elbows on the table, watching every page I turned. There were military benefits forms, insurance documents, letters from officers I'd met exactly one time and never forgotten. And then I found it. Ryan's will. I flipped to page 7 and stopped breathing for a second. It was there exactly like I remembered, in his own handwriting attached to the legal language. In the event of my death prior to our son reaching age 18, designated members of my Naval Special Warfare Team will maintain annual personal mentorship and Memorial Day visitation with my son Caleb Mercer for emotional support, legacy continuity, and family welfare. Below, there were signatures, witnesses, military legal stamps, and tucked behind it was another document I had almost forgotten existed, an official Department of Defense Family Legacy Mentorship Authorization letter signed by Naval Command. I looked up at Caleb. Your dad planned this. Caleb stared at the paperwork like he was trying not to feel too much at once. He really wrote that. He did. He swallowed hard. Before he left, I nodded. He looked down at the table and didn't say anything for a minute. Then very quietly he said, he knew, and that about broke me. Because yes, Ryan knew. Soldiers know things families hate admitting out loud. They prepare for possibilities nobody wants spoken. And in that awful, painful, practical way, Ryan loved us enough to think ahead. By 11 p.m., I had photographed every page and called Laura Whitman, a military family attorney a friend had recommended years earlier. She picked up half asleep, and the second I explained the situation, she was fully awake. Sarah, did the HOA president specifically reference your husband? Yes. And threaten Aline after targeting official military visitors? Yes. Email me everything. I sent it all before midnight. Laura called back 40 minutes later. Okay, she said, this is bigger than HOA harassment. How big? Potential discrimination against a Gold Star family. Impropériensret. Harassment connected to service-related support documentation. We file federally before sunrise. I sat back in my chair. Caleb was asleep on the couch by then, with the TV still on low. The house felt impossibly quiet. Rebecca has no idea what she started. Laura gave a short laugh. No, she really doesn't. By dawn, the complaint had gone to Federal Military Family Protection Offices, the Department of Veterans Affairs, and Naval Special Warfare Command liaison. I went to work and taught sophomore English like none of it was happening. Shakespeare at 8:30. Essay conferences at 10. Lunch duty at noon. The whole time my phone kept vibrating inside my desk drawer. By the time final bell rang, I had 14 missed calls from numbers I didn't recognize. Rebecca was one of them. The first certified notice reached the HOA 72 hours later. According to Laura, it landed in their office like a hand grenade. Service members, Civil Relief Act inquiry. Gold Star Family Harassment Review. Notice of investigation. Insurance disclosure request. Federal documentation required. Rebecca called while I was grading papers at the kitchen island. Sarah, this is unnecessary. Her voice had changed. Gone was the polished HOA tone. She sounded rattled. Is it? This could affect the entire association. That didn't stop you. It was a misunderstanding. No, I said calmly. A misunderstanding is when somebody makes a mistake and apologizes. You called police on my son and then mocked my husband. Silence. Then sharper. I did not mock anyone. You should probably save that explanation for the federal investigators. She hung up first. That lasted about 1 day. Then the board started unraveling. Mr. Dawson, vice president of the HOA, showed up at my front door with a forced smile and a clipboard. Sarah, we're hoping to clear some things up. Federal offices are handling it. Sure, but maybe we can avoid escalation. You threatened to lean on my home. Rebecca may have overreacted. Then Rebecca can explain that. He left looking like he suddenly regretted every decision of the week. Day 5, things got worse for them. Their insurance provider refused coverage related to federal discrimination claims involving service-connected harassment. Laura called me grinning. They now personally exposed. Meaning attorneys start billing directly. By day 9, the board had emergency meetings almost nightly. Neighbors whispered outside. Somebody accidentally emailed residents a legal memo, and panic spread through the neighborhood like wildfire. Mrs. Palmer knocked on my door, carrying banana bread, and apologized for believing Rebecca when she said suspicious military activity. I feel awful, she said. Those men were so respectful. They always are. Rebecca made it sound dangerous. That was the point. Mrs. Palmer nodded sadly. Your husband served with them? He did. Then she should be ashamed. The legal costs climbed fast. 20,000, 40,000, 70. Rebecca stopped walking her dog past my house. Caleb started noticing. She won't even look over here anymore. Good. But underneath the legal chaos, something heavier was happening inside me. I kept thinking about Ryan, about hospital lights, about the last week before deployment, about the way he once held Caleb on his shoulders in this very driveway and laughed because Caleb wanted to salute exactly like Dad. Some grief softens over time. Some stays sharp forever. Rebecca somehow managed to jab directly into that sharp part and act surprised when it bled. Day 23, Laura called during 6th period. I stepped into the teacher workroom. Current penalties and legal exposure just crossed 127,000. I leaned against the copy machine. You're serious? Very. Ow. Federal compliance attorneys, investigations, settlement reserve exposure, documentation fees, and now the Naval Command Office is officially involved. I actually closed my eyes. Rebecca must be losing her mind. Laura laughed. Oh, she absolutely is. Then day 26 happened. A local reporter got hold of the complaint. Wavy Channel 10 ran a segment at 6 p.m. HOA accused of harassing Gold Star widow after police called on Navy veteran mentors. They used Ryan's official uniform photo on screen. Then footage of our house. Then interviews with neighbors. Mrs. Palmer spoke. Mr. Dawson looked pale and refused comment. By morning, everybody knew. Caleb came downstairs scrolling on his phone. Mom, people are defending Dad in the comments. I looked. Hundreds of them. Veterans. Military families. Strangers. Angry. Supportive. Loud. And for the first time since Rebecca made that phone call, Caleb smiled. A real smile. Then he looked at me and asked, do you think Dad would have liked how this is going? I looked toward Ryan's framed photo on the shelf. Your dad hated paperwork. Caleb laughed. Yeah, but he'd be proud you stood tall when police showed up. Caleb got quiet again and nodded. That afternoon, Rebecca finally drove past while I was watering flowers near the porch. She slowed for half a second. Our eyes met. No smile this time, just panic. And I knew right then, the part where she thought she controlled this story was officially over. Rebecca resigned 2 days later, and honestly I wish I could tell you it happened with some dramatic speech in the middle of an HOA meeting or a neighbor publicly calling her out in the cul-de-sac. But it was actually quieter than that. A single email sent to every homeowner just after lunch. Rebecca Holloway has stepped down effective immediately due to personal reasons. That was the official line. Nobody believed it for a second. By then, everybody knew exactly what was happening. The board had turned on her because the numbers were getting ugly and the public attention was getting worse. The management company had attorneys involved. The neighborhood Facebook page looked like a wildfire, and the phrase Gold Star family was suddenly attached to our HOA's name all over town. That tend to change people's tone real fast. On day 31, the management company itself got dropped by its parent corporation. Laura called and told me before the board even sent the notice out. They're trying to protect their corporate brand before this gets national attention. I remember standing in the school parking lot holding my bag and just staring across the pavement. All over one complaint. No, Laura said. Over what happened after the complaint. They doubled down. That's always where people lose. She was right. If Rebecca had apologized that first day, when the police left, this entire thing would have ended with burgers on a grill and maybe an awkward wave from the sidewalk. But she pushed harder because she thought she had authority on her side. Then when that failed, she got personal. Then legal. Then public. And suddenly she wasn't fighting a widow with HOA paperwork anymore. She was explaining herself to federal agencies and corporate attorneys while reporters stood outside. The replacement management company came in fast and clinical. Audits, emergency meetings, financial reviews. Residents got notice after notice. The settlement reserve estimate alone sent HOA fees from $85 a month to $340. 47 homeowners signed a petition demanding structural reform. 12 families listed their homes for sale before summer ended. One older neighbor joked bitterly that Rebecca had tanked property values faster than a hurricane warning. Nobody laughed much, because it wasn't really funny. It was expensive, it was public, and it was entirely avoidable. Then on day 43 around 4:30 in the afternoon, a black SUV and 2 sedans pulled into my driveway. Caleb was inside, finishing homework. I was watering the hydrangeas. 4 board members stepped out. No smiles, no attitude, no clipboards, just folders in hand and the kind of posture people have when they know they're walking into a conversation they absolutely cannot control. Mr. Dawson spoke first. Sarah, thank you for meeting with us. You're welcome. He handed me a packet. Formal notice rescinding the fine. Written apology. Board resolution protecting recognized military legacy mentorship activities. 8-year non-interference agreement signed by every remaining board member and legal counsel. Plus a public statement already posted to the community website acknowledging inappropriate action toward a military widow and her family. I read it slowly while they stood there sweating in Virginia humidity. Then Mrs. Campbell, newly acting board president, cleared her throat. We're deeply sorry. For which part? She blinked. All of it. The police. Yes. The lien threat. Yes. The comment about my husband. She lowered her eyes. Especially that. Nobody spoke for a few seconds. You could hear birds in the trees and somebody mowing down the block. Then Caleb opened the front door and stepped outside. He stopped when he saw everyone standing there. Dawson looked at him. Caleb, we owe you an apology too. Caleb just nodded. Quiet. Polite. Ryan's son all over again. I signed the acknowledgement copy and handed it back. Thank you. Mrs. Campbell exhaled like she'd been holding her breath for an hour. Will your attorney be withdrawing the remaining actions? Some of them, I said. The federal offices can decide the rest. That definitely landed. They left quickly after that. No lingering. No speeches. Just doors shutting and tires pulling away. Caleb stood beside me, watching them disappear down the street. Then he looked up and asked the simplest question in the world. Mom, how'd you do it? I didn't answer right away. I walked inside, opened the hallway cabinet, and brought out Ryan's blue binder. I handed Caleb the will and pointed to page 7. He read it, slower this time than the first night. Then I touched the signature at the bottom. Your dad did this, I said quietly. He made sure if he couldn't be here, you'd still never stand alone. Caleb swallowed hard and nodded without looking up. The next weekend, Marcus Bennett and the rest of Ryan's old teammates came back like they always did. Grill fired up, burgers sizzling, folding chairs in the driveway. But this time something felt different. Neighbors actually came over. Mrs. Palmer brought potato salad. Mr. Alvarez from 2 houses down apologized for believing the rumors. A retired Marine from across the street shook Marcus's hand for a full minute. Kids played basketball near the curb. Somebody laughed too loud. Caleb looked lighter than I'd seen him in months. At one point, Marcus stood beside me holding a paper plate and said, "Ryan would have loved this." I smiled. He would have hated the paperwork. Marcus laughed hard enough to nearly drop his drink. That part too. The sun started setting and painted everything gold across the driveway. Caleb stood surrounded by the men his father trusted most in the world, listening to another ridiculous deployment story and laughing with his whole chest. And for the first time in a long while, the grief felt lighter. Still there, always there, but lighter. These days, the SEAL team still visits every Memorial Day weekend. The HOA covenant has an actual line in writing now, protecting military family activities and legacy mentorship visits. Funny how fast rules appear once lawyers and federal investigators get involved. Rebecca moved out before winter. I heard she relocated 2 counties over. I honestly don't wish her anything bad, but I do hope she learns something. Authority without compassion turns ugly fast, and people carrying invisible sacrifices deserve a lot more respect than a clipboard and a title can ever measure. So I'll ask you this, because I genuinely want to know where people land on it. If a family gives everything in service to this country, and then comes home to be harassed by the very community they live in, who's supposed to protect them? Do Gold Star families deserve stronger legal protections from HOA abuse? Or do you think this neighborhood took the fallout too far? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Because I have a feeling this conversation matters a lot more than one street in Virginia ever could.